Alabama, what grade are you giving them? The expectation level, to be clear, was very high around here. Kalen DeBoer took the handoff from Nick Saban, and they were, to us, one of the favorites to go to the SEC championship game. And they were on track to do it until the Oklahoma disaster. I'm giving this season a C+ at Alabama. The key takeaways for me, the team got held hostage by quarterback play. When it was right, and you beat Georgia. When it was right, and you beat LSU. When it was bad, you just imploded against Vanderbilt, the turnovers, the penalties, against Tennessee, could barely complete a forward pass. It just wildly inefficient and wildly random week to week. The Oklahoma game is like its own portion of this segment, but they couldn't run the ball consistently either. Milroe led the team in rushing. I'll tell you, this surprised me. This quietly surprised me about Alabama more than anything this year, because I can tell you confidently, there were people in that building that thought the rushing attack, Jam Miller, Justice Hayes, that would be a strength of that team. I did too. 32 individual running backs ended up with more rushing yardage this year than both of those guys combined. They weren't hurt. Like, they didn't miss a ton of games. That's just a wild stat. And so the offense, it ended up being less and less and less identifiable week over week. They regressed. And it largely stemmed from the quarterback position. I don't know what else to say. I mean, Milroe's a phenomenal athlete. Hey, last time we saw him in person was the LSU game. It's the game of the year for him and for them. And yet the Oklahoma game was just a few weeks down the road, like really, really shortly down the road. Same way with the Georgia game. They beat Georgia and then lose to Vanderbilt the next week. They just got held hostage by wildly inefficient and in many, many cases erratic quarterback play. I also thought the killer instinct of the program kind of lacked. And that's something that you take over a team, you take over a program, especially the way it happened in Alabama last year, you kind of inherit what you inherit. And I had a working theory that I'm pretty sure I was right on. And that is, a lot of the culture, a lot of the identity of your team gets forged in spring and then summer workouts and fall camp. But the thing Kalen DeBoer was dealing with was one of the first times that any coach had dealt with this, and that is you come in, which means all of your players are free to leave, but you can't take any of them because that wasn't the way the portal was working. So there was just the exit door, but there was no entry. They also went through spring knowing, okay, a lot of these players are feeling us out. There's a second portal window. They could bail. We're already thin, and if they bail on us after spring, we've got no recourse. What I am telling you is, I think they had to handle spring a little bit differently. Now, you may want to go all Junction Boys on them, and you may want to, forge them in the fire of spring so that you harden them for the fall. It wasn't realistic. It wasn't realistic. They couldn't do it. And then when they got in the season, I know many Bama fans, because you guys text me every Saturday or DM me every Saturday, there were moments in the season where you said, man, DeBoer needs to bench Milroe. He needs to send a message. I don't think it would have been smart. You know how I know that? Because I watched Saban do it the year before. He benched Milroe. They proceeded to play the most god-awful 4 quarters of football that I saw under Nick Saban, including year 1, against South Florida. Now, they out-rostered him, so they ended up winning. But I thought the team mailed in the performance. I thought the team actively protested the coaching decision to bench Milroe. So then that was Nick Saban. They had the stones to do that in the face of. Kalen DeBoer comes in brand new the next year. You have no clue what would have happened because for all of Jalen Milroe's faults, that team was firmly behind him. So I think you had to bite the bullet in year 1. And to be honest, DeBoer gets to handle year 1 that way, and it creates a case study, because it will not be that way anymore. 2025 and beyond will be done unequivocally his way and his staff's way. Those kids have had 3 chances to leave on him now. So the ones that have remained, those are the ones who have fully bought into Kalen DeBoer's way of doing things. So it's his team. It's fully his team now. But he gets to look back on 2024 anytime there's a dispute in the future, anytime there's a question about which way we should go. He gets to point back and say, we tried it your way. Remember 2024? We tried it your way. Wasn't good enough. No one was happy with the result. That's why we're doing it my way from here on out. Whereas if you benched Milroe, what do you really change? And that team wasn't going to win a championship this past year. I don't think in the best of cases they were going to win a championship. I don't think if they made the playoff, they were going on a deep run. I think it probably would have ended about the way Tennessee's season ended, to be honest with you. So the trade-off, the risk-reward there, I think it was worth swallowing, a 9-4 record or whatever it was in year one. Also, I think the roster may have been overrated by me, among other people. I think the roster may have been overrated because I think you can look back before he got there. And I think you can say the recruiting rankings indicate that there was a lot of talent on the roster, and there was. There was. It's kind of excuse-making a little bit for myself, but also think about the year before, not 2024. Think about 2023. You know, Saban's final year, we went back and looked. 10 of their 14 games in 2023 were one-score games in the fourth quarter. 4 of those were against unranked opponents. Every one of their games was close. There was a very, very thin margin for error even in Saban's final year. They were heavily penalized even in Saban's final year. Like 1 or 2 bounces of balls are different. Saban's final year would have looked way atypical. But instead, they get the bounces. They execute in the fourth quarter. They end up squeaking some games out. And they ended up in the semifinals of the playoff in overtime. So on the surface, that season looked no different. It was different. That was no vintage Alabama performance. And so Kalen DeBoer came in. They kind of had more of that in year one of him. What I'm saying is there wasn't that big a drop-off performance-wise, efficiency-wise. And I think they'll bounce back pretty effectively. But that's a C-plus effort from Alabama this year. Because as much as I can bake in some excuses, that Oklahoma game, there's no excuse for that. I remember that game more than I do the Vanderbilt game. That Oklahoma performance surprised me more than the Vanderbilt performance.